I had an interesting conversation today with a member of a training group. Well, I do digital coaching along with Ben Steger and Juan Sheet Kim. Anyway, so a guy had his main gun down, was using a practice gun. Was kind of talking about not really feeling up to speed with it. It's a highly tuned pistol, so it's not necessarily like just buying a Glock where they all feel the same. This is kind of a specialized pistol for competition. So there'll be little nuances with the way the gun behaves or the triggers or stuff like that. Just because it's not really a gun you buy off the shelf. And it was right on time because today I was heading out to shoot this guy, M&P 40 caliber. So I thought it was kind of interesting. I was just explaining my thoughts to him, and he agreed with what I was saying. So I'm not telling you it's a good idea to buy different guns or to train, because ultimately, if you want to be good at shooting, you're better off buying one platform, sticking with that one platform, and training with it. Sometimes for business or whatever, I'll end up shooting different guns, or lately, like maybe I'll go to a place and I can't take guns there, or they're gonna have guns there for me. So I might train with a similar style pistol at home before I get there, or stuff like that. So for just the purpose of sheer competition shooting, or being the best you can be, or carry gun, whatever, just picking one platform, sticking with that makes the most sense. But if there's a reason or ability or whatever, switching between guns is kind of interesting, and I think it's been pretty good for me. The reason is, if you just shoot one pistol over and over again, you get really used to the way the gun behaves, and I feel like you can almost take some things for granted, such as the trigger's pretty good. You can be a little bit careless in how you press it because the trigger's so good, it won't be an issue, or the gun doesn't recoil that much because it's got a compensator on it, or it's really heavy, or the way the gun's balanced, or light ammo. So just changing up the guns I shoot or train with from time to time has been really good for me in a maybe not being tuned with one specific gun, but being able to pick up a wide variety of guns and shoot them at least fairly well. I'm not saying go out and shoot a GM score or win a match, but pretty well. So the interesting part with this was shooting this 40 caliber gun. Like, honestly, it's a platform I have total less than 1,000 rounds on, probably over the period of shooting M&Ps altogether. So I've, over the years, for as many M&Ps as I've shot or borrowed one of Benny Boy's, 1,000 rounds would be very, very max, including with this one. So not a gun I've shot a ton. I didn't dry fire this thing really before I took it to the range, other than just checking to make sure I had the magazines and check the trigger a little bit, and a holster that fit it and all that kind of stuff. Otherwise, just took it to the range. I did a little bit of dry fire, just off into basically a rock on the side of the berm. Just draw the pistol, connect with it, grip pressures, press the trigger, kind of like trigger control at speed, where I'm pressing the trigger immediately, and then a little bit more gradually, or rolling on pressure, just making sure I'm not influencing the gun. Trying my best to only basically fire the gun with just my trigger finger, not using the rest of my hand or having my grip change. And then after that, I just started shooting the gun. And I didn't start with like group shooting pace, or like start slow and then try to speed up. Then if it gets messy, slow down. Instead, I just shot at what I thought was appropriate speed, or kind of what speed I was shooting at for any other pistol, which means I was just reacting to the color of the sight. At a broad stroke, close targets, I just react to the color of the sight. Farther targets, I'd let the dot stop stable and look like a dot. For partial targets or some 20-yard shooting, more of that, where it's a little bit more stable. Maybe where it doesn't completely get to be like a dot, but more than a streak. Again, kind of experimenting with those things. And so it was just kind of interesting to shoot this gun because it's a gun I'm not familiar with, but the principles are all the same. What do I mean by that? Well, I want to connect to the pistol, so I'm trying my best to just hold the pistol with my firing hand, not crank down it or make my fingertips turn white. My support hand connect to the gun, not really gripping the gun as hard as I can, just gripping it firmly enough that the pistol doesn't move around in my hand, or my support hand doesn't slide on the gun. Because there's no extra traction or anything like that on this gun. And then once I had those pressures down, I was just working on pressing the trigger, basically with only having my trigger finger move, not having my thumb move along with the trigger finger, and then trying to just react to the sight and shoot aggressively, and just seeing what I could learn. And I thought it was kind of fun because I didn't there's like no assumptions or nothing to take for granted, because it's not like, well, my Walthers have silicone carbides. They'll grip my hand really well. Or, well, the trigger is really good. I like the trigger a lot on this. Or, oh, it's, whatever. This is just kind of an unfamiliar gun. So it just made me pay attention to all those things, such as the shape of the frame, the inputs, the trigger's heavier. I'd call this like a 5-pound trigger. I should put it on a scale. It could be 6 or it could be 5.5. But I think somewhere around 5. So it made me really conscious of my grip, not slowing down when I press the trigger, but when I was rolling on the pressure, being more sensitive to know it's not just going to break in 3 or 4 pounds. It's more like 5 to 6. And then making sure I don't push on the gun to drive shots low, or don't clamp down and have my push into the gun. So for being left hand, it would be low right shots because I'm trying to stop the gun from recoiling and pushing into it to fight it. So it was kind of a good exercise for me, just not taking anything for granted and just being hyper aware of taking everything on board, just watching it all play out, but getting more feedback. Maybe because I'm a little bit unfamiliar with the grip. The .40 caliber obviously recoils more, although it's not like it's going to fly out of my hands, but a little bit more recoil, especially at the distant target, where I'd sight press, and it was just a little bit different timing, or waiting for the dot to come back to where I was looking. Then shooting rapid fire on the close targets, so like a 7-yard target, just seeing the color of the sight, pressing the trigger as fast as I could, trying to be, sub 17 or 16 splits with this gun. And so all that stuff just takes more mental energy because it's not a gun I'm super trained up with and haven't shot a ton. So that's just my thoughts. I thought it was good for me, just developing the ability to shoot different guns, manage those inputs. And like I said, I was kind of just along for the ride for part of it. And then I was just paying attention to, does it feel like the gun's slipping in my hands? Does it feel like I'm using too much firing hand tension? Is the sight not tracking straight up and down? Does it go up to 1 o'clock and come back down? Am I seeing the sight slash? Am I sitting on the sights too long? Kind of all those things. And then just watching it all happen. And then after the repetition, kind of playing back the tape to myself. Like, I think I'm feeling like a little bit of tension creep in, just because the gun recoils more and it's a lighter pistol. So working on just holding the gun with my hands, not my shoulders or back to push in on it. Not pushing down on the gun because .40 caliber snaps more. Instead, just hold the gun with my hands, connect to it, and don't try to shove it or muscle the gun. So anyway, kind of all those things. And then the moment, I'm just along for the ride, watching it all play out, and then trying to, use the same principles that I would use on a different pistol with this one. Because in theory, it's all the same. I'm just connecting to the pistol in a way that it doesn't move around in my hands, trying to press the trigger, whether it weighs 5 pounds or 1.5 pounds, trying my best to press the trigger without influencing the sights, not over returning the gun, meaning even though .40 caliber, when it flips or when it recoils, when the dot lifts, I don't want to shove it back down to make it stop do that. I can't try to hold it in place to stop it from recoiling at all. So like I said, just kind of along for the ride. It recoils a little bit more and it's a lighter pistol. So just doing my best to manage inputs and shoot it straight as best I can. So in conclusion, if you have, access to a similar scenario or shooting a buddy's gun or whatever, I think it's kind of an interesting thing just as a learning thing to see what I can learn from it. But if you're in the situation where you have, let's say you have 2 pistols, a backup and a match gun, I'm not saying you should go out and buy, definitely not .40 caliber because .40 is dead. Who are we joking? That's why it's a bunch of it's around for me to shoot. But I'm not saying you'd go out and buy a different pistol to learn a new platform. But if, let's say, you have a carry gun that's different than what you mainly use as a competition gun or a duty gun, like maybe just a couple range sessions with that, checking the inputs would be smart just to see what you could learn. So anyway, I don't have anywhere else to go with it. It's just been kind of good for me, and I thought I'd talk about it. So if you have any questions I can answer, feel free to drop them below. Do my best to read through all the comments, and if it's something I can answer with a yes, no, or a 1-sentence response, I'll do that in the comments. If it's a question that requires, paragraph of typing or a more detailed answer, then I just end up screen capping them. I put them in a folder, and that way I can make a video out of them to try to answer your question better. So appreciate you guys watching. Like, share, subscribe, and all that crap. But if you don't want to, that's okay too. Either way, I hope you have a good day.